Hello there, welcome to GTV Breakfast News. I am Malti Tisaida Sadek. In the next half, I'll be taking you to look at the approval by the IMF for Ghana's bailout request. We'll do some other business stories as well. We'll take you to the international front. We're streaming live on our social media handles at GTV Ghana. Do endeavor to watch us there, share our feed, and leave us your thoughts and your comments. On DSTV, we're on channel 278. Wherever you are in the world, you can watch us there. Let's start off with the International Monetary Fund has finally approved Ghana's request for a $3 billion bailout. The approval came after the executive board of the IMF met on Ghana's case earlier yesterday and unanimously approved Ghana's program for the next 3 years.
The 3-year loan will help replenish Ghana's foreign exchange reserves, which have dropped almost 50% from a peak in August 2021 as the central bank used the monies to stabilize the cedi. The IMF's executive board met to discuss approval for the funding earlier today and is scheduled to announce its decision later. Sources indicate that finishing touches are being made to sign off the deal. Prior to the approval, the local currency has recorded significant gains. According to Bloomberg, the local currency is trading 1.7% stronger at 10.8 cedis to a dollar. The approval is expected to further improve the cedi's performance in the coming days. The country's Eurobond, maturing in 2032, rose 0.5 cents to 40.2 cents on the dollar. The government is also in talks for an additional 900 million of budget support from the World Bank over a 3-year period, even as it plans to start negotiations with Eurobond holders to restructure $13 billion of debt owed to private investors.
Now, the Public Utilities Regulatory Commission, PRC, says the 18.36% increase in electricity tariffs for all consumer groups for the second quarter of 2023 is, among other things, to prevent prolonged power cuts and the associated negative impacts on livelihoods and businesses. Speaking to Energy News, the Director of Corporate Affairs at PRC, Dr. Eric Obute, said the adjustment will also deal with issues of under-recoveries by the utility companies. Now, the new tariff is expected to kick in by June 1, 2023.
In January, we increased the tariff by 29.96%, and this time around is an increase of 18.36%. And this is hinged on the 4 factors, which are mainly the exchange rate, generation mix between thermal and hydro, inflation, as well as the fuel prices. Exchange rate has depreciated by 20.58%. And then we have fuel prices, which has also gone up by 9.6%. So some of these factors, coupled with an under-recovery, which we had from the previous tariff of 25%, the net effect is that tariffs will have to go up marginally to make sure that we maintain the value of the tariffs that we gave in January 2023. So if you put this together, the prices which are even supposed to be charged is supposed to be more than the 18.36%. But we have the hydro component, which actually came to offset the tariffs. And given the economic conditions in the country, the Commission also, in its wisdom, decided that we should do only 50% of the tariffs that we're supposed to push through. But if we are supposed to have done the 100% of the tariffs, it would have been in excess of the 18.36%. But the Commission decided that we should do 50% of the cost of service. Yes, just as Gridco said that the shortage of gas, if you don't have enough gas, then that means you have to rest some of the machines. And in resting those machines, that means that you don't have enough power to meet the load. So in addressing that, we have some of these factors that I mentioned earlier on to make sure that we bring the tariff up to a particular value, which will enable the utility service providers to get the needed gas to power the thermal plant. So at least we would have the power on and keep the lights running.
Now, bring your expertise on board to bear upon public service to build a more resilient institution to help bring progress and prosperity to the Ghanaian people, says President Akufo-Addo when inaugurating the Public Service Commission Board at the Jubilee House in Accra.
It is 76 years now since Ghana Public Service Commission was established to help shape the public service and make it efficient. It is responsible for advising government in appointing persons to occupy top echelons of public institutions. Inaugurating the Public Service Commission Board at the Jubilee House in Accra, President Akufo-Addo charged them to work hard and to distinguish themselves to help build a public service that will improve the lot of Ghanaians.
It is my expectation that you will bring your expertise on board to support the chairperson to ensure that all of us build a more resilient public service that provides efficient services for the Ghanaian people. Again, as you assume these positions of trust, it is the belief that you will work diligently to help bring progress and prosperity to the Ghanaian people.
The board chair of the Public Service, Professor Victor Kwame Ajiman, pledged to justify the confidence reposed in them.
On behalf of my colleague, we pledge to promote integrity, accountability, and excellence in the public service. I hope to work with you to contribute to rebuilding the PSC, to ensure that the good people of Ghana will be proud of our work.
In another development, the ambassador of Burkina Faso to Ghana, Pigrinoma Zagri, was at the seat of government to bid farewell to President Akufo-Addo after a 7-year duty tour.
I'd like to thank you, and I'm honored by the fact that in August 2017, I was here to present my letter of credence. Shortly after, I took part in a number of activities in Cape Coast, and at this moment where I am completing my mission, I'm here to once again thank you and to thank the people of Ghana, the chiefs, and the whole citizenship of Ghana for the support, the immense support that you have accorded me.
President Akufo-Addo lauded Ambassador Zagri for deepening the ties between Accra and Ouagadougou, especially the electricity and railway projects between the two countries.
The important economic and infrastructural ties between our two countries, the connection of our electricity systems, and also of our railway system. And the railway is one that is particularly close to my heart, and I'm hoping that even before I leave office, we will see significant movement in bringing that particular project to fruition.
Ambassador Zagri was the Dean of the Diplomatic Corps in Ghana, Edward Nyakum, reporting for GBC News.
Away from the Jubilee House, let's go to the courts. The Supreme Court has annulled the election of restrained Member of Parliament for Asin North, Mr. James Gyakye Quayson. The court has subsequently ordered Parliament to expunge his name from his records as an MP. It is the ruling of the Apex Court that Mr. Gyakye Quayson's election was unconstitutional because he was not qualified at the time of filing his nomination forms.
The Supreme Court on Wednesday ruled that the Electoral Commission acted unconstitutionally in allowing Mr. James Gyakye Quayson to contest when he had not provided evidence of his renunciation of his citizenship of Canada. The Apex Court held that the election of the former lawmaker was therefore null and void. His swearing-in was also declared unconstitutional and of no effect. It therefore ordered Parliament to expunge Mr. James Gyakye Quayson's name from its records as a Member of Parliament. On April 13, 2022, the Supreme Court, in a 5-2 majority decision, placed an injunction on Asin North MP James Gyakye Quayson to restrain him from holding himself as an MP. The court directed that he abstained from Parliament and not take part in any business of the House until the final determination of the substantive suit. A resident of Asin Breku, Mr. Michael Ankoma Nimfa, brought the suit against Mr. Gyakye Quayson to restrain him from further holding himself as an MP after the Cape Coast High Court nullified his election last year. He argued that despite the judgment of the High Court, Mr. Gyakye Quayson continued to hold himself as an MP. The Electoral Commission and the Attorney General were joined to the suit. Mr. Ankoma Nimfa said Mr. Quayson breached the constitution and electoral laws of the country by putting himself up for the elections. He argued that the embattled MP was not eligible to be voted for the position. He first filed an application at the Cape Coast High Court, which ordered for fresh elections in the Asin North constituency after determining that Mr. James Gyakye Quayson contravened Article 94(2)(a) of the Constitution, Section 92A of PNDC Law 284 and CI 127. Mr. Quayson filed an appeal at the Court of Appeal in Cape Coast, which was also struck out for non-compliance with court procedures.
The ruling on the case, which has travelled for nearly a year now, has been adjourned on several occasions, which the NDC claimed was a deliberate attempt to deny the people of Asin North a representative in Parliament. With this latest development, the Speaker of Parliament is to, within 7 days, inform the Electoral Commission through the Clerk of Parliament of the vacant seat for a by-election to be organised within 21 days.
Let's still stay with the judiciary. The High Court has granted a lifeline to convicted founder of defunct Capital Bank, William Ato Essien, to redeem outstanding monies as agreed on with the state by July 4. Now, following the decision of the court, it adjourned a hearing of an application filed by the state seeking the court to impose custodial sentence on the convict for failing to meet his end of an agreement to pay the first tranche settlement on schedule. Mr. Essien was convicted in December 2022 of 16 counts of conspiracy, stealing, and money laundering. The court ordered him to make a restitution and reparation of 60 million cedis in 3 installments within 1 year.
Following the failure of Mr. William Ato Essien to meet his obligation of paying 20 million cedis on April 28, 2023, the Attorney General filed a motion praying the court to impose a custodial sentence on him. He has since paid 5 million cedis to the Controller and Accountant General. The said application was set to be heard on Wednesday afternoon. However, Justice Eric Chebafo said he had taken notice of steps by the convict to liquidate assets in his wholly owned Essien Swiss International Holding, for which he is expecting huge sums of money, as deposed in his affidavit in opposition. The court held that if the claims by Mr. Ato Essien were made bona fide, time will vindicate that. Justice Chebafo, Justice of the Court of Appeal, sitting with additional responsibility as High Court judge, held that if he allowed the state to move the application to impose custodial sentence on Mr. Essien, he would be compelled to give a ruling, so he would hasten slowly and adjourn it to July 4, 2023.
Looking at the document that he has exhibited, you realize that if you add the first amount that he's expecting, which is about $300,000, it will be up to 4 million Ghana cedis. Maybe now that he's been given a special grace by the court up to the end of June, we'll be able to gather the resources and then pay everything. But looking at what we have in the document that he has, the agreement that he has with that company, written that he cannot pay the 55 billion Ghana cedis, but maybe we have other options. We are all servants of the law. The law says that if a convict defaults, the outstanding sum becomes payable. So we are insisting on that.
Deputy Attorney General Alfred Tiayeboa indicated that with a convict defaulting in making full payment of 20 million at the end of last month, per the law, he is to pay the remaining balance of 55 million cedis in full and at once.
GTV Breakfast News. Now, about 1/3 of the 2.7 billion people in least developed countries worldwide are not connected to the internet. The International Telecommunications Union has therefore set 2023 as a year of progress for digital transformation to bridge the gap for sustainable growth. These were highlights of an event held in Accra to celebrate World Telecommunication Day.
World Telecommunications and Information Society Day is marked on the 17th of May annually to raise awareness of the importance of telecommunications and the opportunities that ICT offers in bridging the digital divide. The day also seeks to emphasize the need for universal access to ICT, especially in developing countries. At a panel discussion on how partners can collaborate to bridge Ghana's connectivity gap, the Chief Executive of MTN Ghana, Mr. Selom Adadevo, outlined measures to augment government's connectivity drive.
We see the growth on connectivity to be significant. MTN partnered, with Huawei to develop the Rural Star solution in collaboration with the Ministry of Communications and Digitalization. And we came up with a solution that reduced the cost to deploy to rural areas by approximately 40 to 60%, depending on whether it was OPEX or CAPEX. And all of this is geared towards allowing access and getting to some of the rural areas and the communities that we are. We're also ensuring that local Ghanaians are participating in the value chain for supplying handsets, and that will be part of our whole localization strategy.
The Deputy Minister for Communications and Digitalization, Madam Ama Poma Boateng, called on partners in the private sector to help achieve targets set by the International Telecommunications Union to ensure universal connectivity and digital transformation.
Government has established a national roaming policy to address some of the challenges of network coverage and their impact on telephone consumers. It is a step towards ensuring that all citizens, regardless of their location, have access to reliable telecommunication services, which focuses on establishing cyber labs across the country to enhance digital literacy and skills development.
The Deputy Director General for Technical Operations at the National Communications Authority, Professor Eze Osei-Yeboah Boateng, spoke about progress made over the years in Ghana's digitalization agenda.
Looking at Ghana's journey so far in ICTs, connectivity and digitalization, it is in the right direction that we support efforts to assist LDCs connect to the world. Currently, there are 46 countries in the world that have been declared by the United Nations as LDCs. Fortunately, Ghana is not on that list as LDC.
A flag was hoisted to mark the day. It was on the theme Empowering the Least Developed Countries Through Information and Communication Technologies.
Now, scientists have predicted that the world is likely to break a key temperature limit for the first time over the next few years. Researchers say there's now a 66% chance that the world will pass the 1.5C global warming threshold between now and 2027. The chances are rising due to emissions from human activities and a likely El Nino weather pattern later this year.
The world passes the limit. Scientists stress the breach will likely be temporary. Hitting the threshold would mean the world is 1.5 Celsius warmer than it was during the second half of the 19th century, before fossil fuel emissions from industrialization really began to ramp up. And breaking the limit even for just 1 year is a worrying sign that warming is accelerating and not slowing down. The 1.5 Celsius figure has become a symbol of global climate change negotiations. Countries agreed to pursue efforts to limit global temperature rises to 1.5 Celsius under the 2015 Paris Agreement. Going over 1.5 Celsius every year for a decade or two would see far greater impacts of warming, such as longer heat waves, more intense storms, and wildfires. But passing the level in one of the next few years would not mean that the Paris limit had been broken. Scientists say there is still time to restrict global warming by cutting emissions sharply.
Let's look at international news now. A group of primary school children has suffered traumatic, life-changing injuries after a horrific bus crash in Melbourne, Australia. And police said on Tuesday afternoon the bus was carrying 45 pupils when it was hit by a truck from behind and rolled. Some 18 children aged 5 to 11 were rushed to the hospital, many for emergency surgery. One remains in intensive care. The truck driver has been charged with dangerous driving causing serious injury. Australia has a below-average road safety record compared to other advanced economies. It ranks 20th out of 36 OECD countries for road fatalities. And it's time for us to get our weather rundown. Frederick joins us on the phone lines now. Good morning, Frederick.
Good morning, Malbibi.
How's our weather looking like today in Accra and across the country?
Well, a very good morning to all your viewers this morning. For the next 24 hours, especially from this morning to the afternoon, mostly cloudy weather will prevail along the coast, and then also over the middle and then the northern sector. From this morning into the afternoon, we expect a rainstorm which moved all the way from Nigeria. It's currently located at the borders of Togo and then Ghana. So we expect it to later moving to affect most places in the northern region, and then also coming into the transition belts as well as the forest areas. We expect some rainfall activities this morning into the afternoon. Places along the coast, Accra and its environs from Volta region, Denu, Keta into Greater Accra region are likely to be affected also by this rainstorm. So even as we move out from our homes to our various places, we advise that we prepare for some rainfall activities this morning. So generally for today, we don't expect a rise in temperatures so much due to the cloudiness that will prevail mostly for the entire day. Temperatures will range from about 23 degrees Celsius to about 34 degrees Celsius across the entire country. Into tomorrow morning, more of cloudiness will be seen with some possible rainfall activities over the forest belt, and then misty and then foggy weather will also be seen for tomorrow morning.
Right. Thank you so much, Frederick. Kujo, for those updates. Frederick is our weatherman with the Ghana Meteo Agency, giving us how the weather will pan out across the country, bringing us a close of GBC Breakfast News. You know where you can go for more news. That's gbcghanaonline.com. I am Maltiti Saida Sadiq. We're dashing over to the BFS kitchen, and we're looking at palava sauce wrapped in pancake. Very interesting delicacy. We'll see how that will go. Also, a bit later, the headlines will come your way. I'll be back at 7 with sports, all the Real Madrid and the Man City juice. Stay with GTV Breakfast.